the car upside down. Mark Martin is over on his roof.
Did a new rule make better racing?
I wish NASCAR would do something. It was a boring race for the fans.
Then we're headed back to the Lone Star State, where Jeff Gordon broke a long losing streak.
Gordon wins for the first time at Texas.
Twin starts now. This Week in NASCAR is brought to you by Geico. And good Monday evening, everybody. I'm Steve Burns. Glad you're with us here in the Speed Studios in Charlotte, North Carolina, joined by Mr. Excitement, Jimmy Spencer, Chad Knaus, and Michael Waltrip. And boys, I guess it's time to put on the big boy pants and talk about what happened at Talladega yesterday, because weeks from now, people may not remember that Jamie McMurray won it. What they'll remember is this.
Well, that's the first thing you saw in all the news stations this morning, you know, the accident. I mean, I don't understand why the news channels don't talk about how good the racing was, but show the bad side of the sport.
And it's too bad for Jamie, because he ran a fantastic race. He was cautious at the beginning of the event. He worked his way up towards the front about midway through the race, got out front and led a bunch of laps. So I think that, you know, we can't forget that.
Ooh, that was close.
You're laughing now. I bet you weren't yesterday.
Well, when I saw Kurt spin, I said, man, I got to go left hard. And sometimes you're, you know, as a race car driver, whoa, that made me dizzy. Sometimes you're afraid at a place like Talladega to really turn the wheel, but I knew that I had to. And I got it down there, and then once I got over there toward the care center, I wondered if I could angle it back onto the racetrack or not, because it was a long way off.
Yeah.
But we bounced through it and made it. But the racing yesterday was typical Talladega, if you ask me. I don't think Mr. Helton's comments prior to the race hurt a thing. I believe it might have made us a little bit saner for 300 or 400 miles. But at the end of the event, it was the same old Talladega.
All right, but let's get to the point of, is there anything that can be done to stop those kind of wrecks happening at Talladega?
Okay. Not in the configuration we're in right now. No way.
There's two options. You can either live with it and race, or we don't go there. There's no fixing it.
Well, I think there is a way to fix it. And I think NASCAR right now has to look at this and say, we have to really make a diligent effort of looking and talking to the crew chiefs and the drivers and doing some testing. And, you know, Chad, you just said maybe put a chicane on the back straightaway. That's pretty extreme. But, you know, we have to do something extreme, because we can't afford to have our sport slandered all over the news channels that constantly wreck, because we put good racing on, and because of a wreck, man, we hit the headlines. And I don't think that's fair to our sport.
But how many times have we had this conversation is
We're always going to have it forever in Talladega.
The problem is we are too smart. We can't unlearn what we know. You know, it's just like when we came out with this car, you know, everybody's like, okay, you won't need to worry about downforce anymore because you've got this new car. Well, we still worry about it. We still work on it. We still, you know, at the intermediate racetracks, we can't unlearn what we've already taught ourselves and educated ourselves in. We're going to have that situation no matter what we do. Anytime you try to restrict these race cars, it's going to bunch up the packs. Until we can make it to where the cars are difficult to drive and separates the field like you do at Daytona when you're at a long green flag run, that's the only way it's going to happen. At Daytona, you have the big wreck as well, but that's only after a caution flag where everybody gets new tires and everybody's out there where they can go wide open. Once they get strung out a little bit and you've run, the tires are worn out and they can't handle.
Good point. But we always seem to get in trouble when we slow the cars down.
Exactly.
I think we need to speed the cars up. Well, and then I think we need to dirty the cars up. I mean, we look at the Atlanta Motor Speedway, and when we go to Atlanta, you enter the corners in excess of 200 mile an hour, but the drivers all separate themselves. What happens here, fans? The drivers have minimal inches to miss these accidents at speeds of 175, 185 mile an hour. To me, I think we need to put a bigger plate on the cars. We need to change the wing. We need to dirty the cars up. We need to get them to run 195 or 6, and then they'll start separating themselves.
But Michael, I want to get back to Chad's point, because Dale Earnhardt Jr. mentioned this, the way the aerodynamics are, these cars cut through the air too well. But everything that Jimmy said, I've heard 100 different solutions. Is it going to change anything at Talladega?
What will happen if you put less aerodynamics and a
That's
bigger
my question.
plate on it? What will happen is when practice goes off on Saturday morning, you're going to run 210 miles an hour, and that's not acceptable. Cars will fly up in the air, and we have to keep them on the ground. So it's a great idea, Jimmy. Unfortunately, it isn't applicable.
Yeah, we can't go above 200 mile an hour. I agree with you, Michael. I'm not denying that.
I'll tell you something that is applicable is if you look over Chad's left
That's a
shoulder.
tough word.
It is hard to say. Look over Chad's left shoulder. That makes me hungry. Those Pop-Tarts with that fire.
Oh, in the toaster. You like them in the toaster.
Wow.
I
All right,
like
well,
my Pop-Tarts warm.
That's what I said, in the toaster. That would be the opposite of right.
You can't fix Talladega right now. You just can't.
But let's hear what Ryan Newman said after he was upside down for
I'm struggling keeping up with this one.
NASCAR, telling us how to drive the race cars. The less we can race and the less we can put on a show for the fans. And as I said before, go back in the day when Richard Petty, Bobby Allison, Dale Earnhardt, Darrell Waltrip, all those guys, they respected each other. And yeah, there was big accidents, but Jesus, we don't need the cars getting upside down like this. This is ridiculous. I mean, there's way more technology out there than that to help us out. And whether it's a speed issue, a roof flap issue, whatever.
Fans, that's just total frustration. I mean, I think back to Ryan Newman's first trip to Daytona, the rear end's out of the car, he's flipping. He has a shot at winning a race in the spring, and he gets collected in an accident. He really wasn't, he hasn't really had the best of chase. He got in the chase. He hasn't had the best of 6 or 8 races here, and then he gets in another accident. So automatically, a little frustration shows through. I agree with Ryan. I think that NASCAR needs to look and talk to all the drivers and the crew chiefs and try to figure out something. But I don't think Ryan's right in saying that NASCAR is not looking out for the safety of the sport, not saying that they don't respect the drivers and things like that. I don't agree with Ryan on that.
They're doing all they can. NASCAR's doing everything they can do. That's what Sunday in drivers meeting was about, just trying to make sure Mike Kelton did all he could do for us to put on a safe race and a competitive race.
Okay, one other question in this segment. We might touch on this more later. I read some blogs, I read some message boards, which I typically try not to do a lot of. A lot of fans did not like the racing, but you said the racing was good. So what is it?
I think the drivers learned a real lot. Okay, Chad? I mean, you think about it. The drivers learn. Your driver in particular, he says, I'm going to ride back here. You guys made a decision to ride back here. Put yourselves in position. The drivers dictated what kind of race it was. It wasn't NASCAR dictating that race.
That's exactly right. And, there's 500 miles. And for part of the time, it's pretty smart just to log some miles. And when it gets down to crunch time, you see people pack it in there and try to get them some track position and get up front and get a chance to win the race. 500 miles is a long race, and you got to be smart during part of it and not put yourself in a position to wreck.
And we have the same thing at every racetrack we go to. Martinsville, which is one of the most rough and tumble tracks we go to, we had a fuel stop last time we were there. We went 128 laps of green flag racing there with no cautions. So it's just, that's people getting into a rhythm and riding, and not making big mistakes. Fontana, we have the same issue. Michigan, every track we go to, you have that. So it's nothing new. It just so happens everybody's in a straight line.
Well, there's a lot more to talk about. When we come back, you get the best scanner conversation in Radioactive. Hear what Mark Martin was concerned about after going end over end. Plus, NASCAR warned the drivers not to bump draft in the turns, but did it affect the racing? We'll ask the boys. Jeff Gordon has taken some hard licks at Texas, maybe the hardest of his career. Judge for yourself a little later.
This Week in NASCAR is presented by Geico, where 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Brought to you in part by Orbitz. Visit Orbitz.com today and save. And by Wrangler, proud sponsor of Dale Earnhardt Jr. Wrangler, real, comfortable jeans.
At one point during yesterday's race about midway, Kevin Harvick said, I wish I had my iPod. Now, a lot of the radio conversation is dominated by the spotters at Talladega and Daytona, but let's listen to yesterday's Radioactive.
Radio check, check 1, 2. 10-4, guys, check 1, 2.
That's it, bud. Doing good. Clear of mark. Clear. Single file all the way up through there. 2 back to mark. Everybody's trying to get the top lane so they can ride for a while. They've probably seen enough.
Everyone's still single file, riding the top.
Yeah, I haven't had to lift or brake yet since we got line. Pretty weird.
just holding it to the floor still, haven't let up yet. We'll hand you a stick on the first stop where you can wedge it in there somewhere between the seat and the ground.
I'll never understand why this outside lineup thing like this works, but it is. I got a tire rub from getting bump drafted too hard.
Here we come, fellas. Spin in front of you.
Here's the two. Oh, here goes Kurt Busch. This will bring out a caution right here.
Stay out if you can.
Negative, pit road.
Circle the grass and come in your box. Circle the grass and come in your box. 4 tires, guys, 4 tires.
Get your right side there, get your right side. Get the quarter panel away from the tire.
Go. Haul ass out. Go.
That's start, tail end longest line.
Yeah, pitted too soon.
How did we pit too soon?
The light was on before we entered the pits.
Dude, there is no safe or sane way to get on the pit road at that point. That's okay.
Bouncing off one another. Here comes Kane. Whoa, trouble further back. Ryan Newman up and over off the end of the back straightaway. On his roof, sliding up, pounding the safer barrier. Marcus Ambrose is collected, and Kevin Harvick as well.
39, he landed off top of me. I'm all right. Talk to me if you can, buddy. Catch your breath. I'm glad to hear it. Hell of a job.
All right, old man. Yeah, I got a like a racehorse.
I see a little Aldean field.
Hate this damn bull form of racing. Right front's flat, broke a brake line. I got brakes, but I'm not going to have them.
Got a long way to go and coming to the white flag. Yeah. Oh, here goes Kurt Busch around. Oh.
Just come on through here. Watch the one coming down.
The 5 car all right? The smart car all right?
Yeah, he's moving around inside there.
That was spectacular.
Hold your brakes, Mark. You all right, bud?
I'm okay. I'm trying to make it a line, boys.
We win. Nick, let it go.
Hell yeah.
You just won a race at Talladega.
Oh, it looks so good.
I will see you in victory lane.
That is excitement. I don't care what you say, any way you look at it, that was an exciting race. There was a lot of things going on. There's a lot of strategies that played out. There's a lot of scenarios. I don't think people understood, like, even when we were running in the back, that was dangerous. The last guy in line typically lost the draft, and it was almost like you would peel off. Whoever ended up at the end of that line would lose the draft, and he'd fall back a little bit. And then whoever the next guy was in line, he would lose the draft and fall off a little bit. So it was difficult at that point. Those wrecks were exciting. I'm so glad that Mark is okay and that the 39 and Ryan Newman are okay. I think that shows what we've got for racing. It's way more exciting and way more intense than what anybody gives it credit for. We race week in and week out to put on a good show, and that is what they had, was a good show that weekend, or yesterday.
And you know, with McMurray winning, that's the first time since Biffle won, and it wasn't in the chase. That's the first non-chase winner in like 24 races. That's a pretty cool record.
Didn't you say it was the first laps that Jamie had led all year since Pocono?
Jamie led 1 lap fans this year at Pocono, and then he led the most laps at Talladega. So he's having a stellar year in lap sled.
He got the checker flag. Let's take a look, beginning our look at some of the highlights from yesterday's AMP Energy 500. Now, Michael, NASCAR warned you guys about bump drafting in the turns. How did it affect the race?
I don't think it affected it at all because, you know, a big deal was made out of not bump drafting, but hooking up, locking up, getting 2 cars tied together like we saw the 09 and the 99 and the 88 and his buddy do come into the checker at the last race at Talladega. We learned that, and I did it in practice, you get them tied together, they're going to go way faster than everyone else. NASCAR said, we don't want that happening. That's the only thing that changed. We weren't supposed to bump draft in the turns prior to yesterday.
They had said that before.
That's what's always been said.
But the only difference was the penalty. They were going to give you a pass-through penalty. Is that correct?
You know, we were encouraged not. The yellow line was a big deal when it first came around. We can't put a yellow line there. Now everybody agrees it's one of the best, safest rules that we have at Talladega and Daytona. It keeps people out of the infield racing. So I asked Mr. Helton and those guys, I said, you should draw lines on the track and say, okay, after this line, don't bump draft. you can't do it. It's a turn, and you're not allowed to do it. Then it's black and white, and if you do it, the penalty will be handed down. But I think also that as long as you don't leave enough time for two cars to get welded together to really run a lap or so like that, it's really not that big of a deal. We saw it in the truck race on Saturday where the winner actually got pushed to the checkered off of turn 4 and made good progress. So that was still legal in the race on Sunday. The rule change, that just made the racing safer up to the end. But at the end, you're going to push that envelope as far as you can and try to learn exactly what they are calling turn 4. Like, don't push in the turns. Well, am I in the turn or am I kind of out of the turn? Because I really need to push this guy. And that's what we didn't really get to find out on Sunday because no one stepped over that line.
Well, certainly a lot more to talk about here on This Week in NASCAR. Coming up, did the smaller restrictor plates make safer racing? That's part of the debate. Past races at Texas Motor Speedway have been won using fuel mileage. We'll ask the guys if that'll happen again. This Week in NASCAR will be right back. Want a picture of Jamie McMurray's big win at Talladega? To enter the Picture of the Week giveaway, go to speedtv.com, click the Shows tab at the top, go to the This Week in NASCAR page, and you'll see an email tab at the top. Put McMurray in the subject line and you're entered to win. Be sure to put your shipping address in the email. The winner will be revealed next week. The Denny Hamlin picture is going to New Mexico. Time now to get into more of the highlights from yesterday's race and lots of debate to go with it. Green flag stops happening when Kurt Busch cuts a tire and spins to the infield off 4. Yeah. Now, the Castrol Edge smart move of the race goes to Jeff Gordon, who stays on the racetrack instead of pitting. Chad, because the red light indicating the pits are closed comes on just as this pack of cars enters pit road, including yours. Coming up right there, and then Tony Stewart, Ryan Newman, and Jamie McMurray all come down pit road with you.
But hang on a second. He missed the commitment line. He went beyond the commitment line and turned to the right, if you look at it, too.
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't. He was well outside.
He did orange boxes.
He did perfect. NASCAR needs to be encouraged, I think, to move that line back. I mean,
the commitment line?
No, move the light back.
The light.
So that the light comes on, you got time to not. I mean, those guys were at the line. The light comes on.
I've had this discussion with them multiple times. We had the same thing happen to us at Pocono this year. There's no way that we could have missed that. Tony Stewart could have missed that. Nor
you could
Ryan
not have turned right.
It's impossible. We would have ran into the 39 car and couldn't even have slowed down at that point to have made that.
So if the light's back, maybe
that would have been better. But if nothing else, allow the guys that are coming down pit road to do a drive-through penalty or do the drive-through pit road and not get penalized.
My question, too, is looking at that replay, does that light need to be bigger? Not only further back.
That has nothing to do with it.
Lights are.
That has nothing to do with it. Like, Jimmy didn't see the light because he's looking down pit road.
Right.
He's watching these guys. You can't see that, but it would have made no difference whatsoever if
you're saying even if he saw it, he couldn't have.
It could have been a freaking train crossing thing coming down. You couldn't have made it.
You guys are making a great point up because I'm thinking back to Watkins Glen. When Kurt Busch is on committed and the light comes on, I mean, it was such a split second. And I think you guys are right. I think that's something that NASCAR really needs to look at because it could have cost those guys some. I know it cost Kurt the chance of Watkins Glen, so something NASCAR definitely should address.
All right, let's move ahead. Points leader Jimmy Johnson hangs in the back most of the day. And Chad, was that your strategy going in? Because it really, I don't know when you guys actually made the move to the front.
They were running on 7 cylinders.
Well, of course it was a strategy, and you know, commend them for it. Why are you saying of course? Because there was no other strategy that would make any sense.
What if he ran in the front?
He's not. You can't guarantee.
By the way, he is right here.
Why are you yelling at me?
He is right here.
I'm trying to reach out and get him to comment. My point is,
this is like tennis, man.
This is cool.
You got 180 something. You got over the lead you had.
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't you? Who would have done anything any different?
Apparently, a lot of the fans didn't like it. I didn't realize that. But you know, here's the way that I take it. We're racing and we're trying to win races, and that's what we do. That's what we do for a living, you know. And I thought that what you wanted to do was try to win championships and try to win races. And we feel like our best option to try to win that race was to ride around the back all day and keep our cars safe. Dale Jarrett did it 4 years ago.
05.
Rode around the back all race long. at the end of the race, checked up, went to the front, and won the thing because he had the best car at the end of the race. Everybody else's cars were just beat to crap, and his car was like pristine, so he just drove right on through everybody.
Dale Earnhardt took with 2 to go in 2000 when he won his last race.
Went
He
from
took
17th.
He was 18th and drove up there and won the race. So you looked at when you saw Jimmy Johnson riding around in the back. Did you see the cars that were around him? Casey Kane.
Jamie McMurray at one time. The guy that won the race was riding with Jimmy for a major part of the race.
Brian Vickers, Casey. I mean, there just were a bunch of good cars all over the track. I ran up front some and run in the back some as well. You just had to make sure you knew that it was a 188-lap race, and the goal was to get to the checker flag, not exactly what happened before that.
I'm on board.
Early on, anyway.
All right, let's move ahead. Following the Ryan Newman wreck with 4 laps to go, some teams had fuel issues. Jeff Gordon runs out of fuel and gets pushed to the pits. Now, the Geico Greatest Pit Crew Award goes to the 42, the 5, and the 88 teams for bringing their drivers to pit road to make sure they're good to go for fuel. On the next lap, David Stremme runs out as well. All the teams that pitted get the Geico Greatest Pit Crew. And Chad, you told me before we walked in here, you were surprised the teams that did not come down.
Yeah, as soon as they opened pit road, and there's a car on its lid on the back stretch and a couple other ones smoking as they're coming around. You know there's going to be 3 or 4 laps of caution, at least 3. I was shocked that, we came down as soon as they opened pit road.
And I think
topped off with fuel.
I think the Geico Greatest Pit Crew should have been my Napa team and Chad's Lowe's team for coming in as soon as they opened pit road, because listen to what happened, Steve. I was 30th when the caution flew. By the time everybody got done running out of gas and pitting out of turn, I had restarted 17th, and that gave me a chance to drive up to 7th. So a good pit call in this circumstance was pitting when the pits opened.
I'm going to put you down for the Geico Greatest Pit Crew. I'm putting this 55 in. Congratulations.
Put 48 in, too.
I just did. Congratulations.
Right, great. Thank you.
All right, smaller restrictor plate yesterday, 1/64th of an inch. Michael said last week that took away about 12 horsepower.
And I was guessing, and I found out I'm right.
You are a smart man.
Spot on.
So how did it affect the racing?
Just real quick, it wasn't.
We have an hour.
It wasn't about the racing.
What was it about?
Safety.
Okay.
It wasn't about safety for the drivers. It was about safety for the fans, trying to keep the cars out of the fans' area, out of the fans' space. That's what that was all about. They made it safer for the fans, potentially.
How can you not enjoy that race? I don't understand the fans saying. I don't understand the fans saying. I guess fans, do we have to do this?
You know what they're mad about?
We have to go 12 and 14.
Jimmy, you know what they're mad about?
Wide the whole race, and it's not right.
They're mad about it getting single file and staying that way.
But it's done that every race there. Every race.
I don't disagree. I'm saying what people are mad about.
I want to tell the fans this, and Michael could testify to this. If you were a driver like these guys today, and I've been in the situation, you get so stressed out, you say, man, I got to just relax here for a while. So, the fans, these drivers are human beings, and they just can't take that pressure of side-by-side racing for 500 miles. I'm telling you, I think it was a pretty doggone good race. I didn't want to see anybody get on their roof, but, all in all, I love Talladega, man, and yeah, we didn't have the best of race as far as getting on a roof yesterday, but I think NASCAR could look at something, but don't knock the racetrack down.
Yeah, I thought the race was entertaining for me, from what I saw, and I love being a part of it. But, we go to some racetracks and we complain that the cars are too spread out. We go to other racetracks and we don't like the way the racing's looking. Fans have the right to their opinion, and some of them didn't like what they saw yesterday. That's great. I just happen to be a guy that pretty much have liked every race I've ever seen since I started watching them as a kid, because I understand the strategy, and like Jimmy pointed out, I appreciate that point, Jimmy. There's a point in time in a 4-hour sporting match that you just need a break. And those cars lined up, logging some laps, gave guys a chance to take their brain and say, wow, this is tense. And so it didn't last long, that's for sure. We come to pit road and have a caution, and it's all right back on top of each other.
And congratulations to Jamie McMurray, certainly overlooked in all this, but his 3rd career win. When we return, Michael Waltrip, who won the Geico Greatest Pit Crew Award, barely missed one of the big wrecks. We'll show you which one after this, and we'll answer some emails. How much weight is a gas man throwing around during a pit stop? We'll find out. Stay with us.
The smart move of the race has been presented by new Castrol Edge. Think with your dipstick. Upgrade to new Castrol Edge Advanced Synthetic. Nothing offers better wear and protection. The Greatest Pit Crew has been presented by Geico, where 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
NASCAR race day built by the Home Depot with the franchise Jimmy Spencer this weekend at the Texas Motor Speedway, Sunday at 12:30 here on Speed. Let's take a look at the point standings now. We saw this during the commercial break. Chad Knaus was already wincing. He does not like the fact that the yellow line is below his driver. Everybody's out. Everybody's
how would he like it if it was above his driver? Even less.
Glass half full. I like how you're thinking.
I think Brian Vickers is eliminated.
Yeah.
Has anybody been mathematically eliminated yet?
I think Vickers is. 551, 3 races to go, 160 something, so he'd be out of it.
Yeah.
Guys, speaking of you guys had a great day today, yesterday, winning securing more point lead. But we had 58 lead changes, another record for this year. So I just want to bring that to light.
You're just throwing stuff out there, aren't you, Jimmy?
Well, because the points, in my opinion, Michael, are over.
So talk about something else, right?
Let's talk about the Biff. Greg Biffle, his best finish ever, right? In 14 starts at Talladega. Greg Biffle finishes 4th, so we want to give a shout out to our man. Now, speaking of great driving, how about the move you made at the end of the race?
It was evasive. Just
you're a race car driver.
Figured my best chance was to hook a left, and we.
Oh, you even have an arrow.
I got my own arrow. Where's Jimmy?
We do it all here, Chad.
And left.
Good job, Michael.
Jeez.
Wow.
Wow. Did you see Kurt Busch? Did you even look?
No, I just knew it was. I was turning left and hanging on at the same time because I just figured that's what was going to happen. Yeah.
Like the old, I made it.
Another one I want to throw out there is the 9 car. They did a really good job. They actually lost the draft, I think, twice throughout the course of that event. Came back to finish 2nd. I think that was a pretty amazing shot right there. That's good for those guys.
He had some damage at one point. He caved in his right front fender, and they had to work that out.
They did a good job.
Great job.
It's time now for the Z-Max Fuel for Thought email segment. Our first question: how much fuel is in each over-the-wall fuel can, and how much does it weigh?
Well, there's 11 gallons of fuel per can, which at about 6.8 pounds per gallon would be right around 80 pounds. Pretty heavy for, pretty strong guy to put the gas can up, put it in the hole.
Our second question is for Chad Knaus. Chad, instead of restrictor plates, why can't they slow the cars down with a limit on the rear end gear or transmission?
They can, but it would be the same scenario, just in a different way. So basically, the restrictor plate does the same thing. It limits the amount of speed that you can run. But at any time that you limit the speed of these cars, whether it be through gear selection or through the restrictor plate, it's just going to tighten up the packs. It's the same thing.
And one thing that is important to remember, if you're driving down the road and there's a sign that says 45 miles an hour for this turn, you take it at 45 miles an hour, it's easy. You take it at 60, it's difficult. Our cars at Talladega, there should be a sign that says 230 for this turn, and we're taking it at 190. That's how easy what we're doing is to make a car go around the track.
Good point.
All right.
That's all I got.
We're going
got
to
it.
bump.
When we come back, a look back to Jeff Gordon's big win at Texas earlier this season. But before 2009, Gordon struggled at Texas. We'll get an in-depth look at the number 24 at the Great American Speedway. Stay with us. This Week in NASCAR is brought to you by Geico. Well, as many races as Jeff Gordon has won in his career, going into the first race at Texas Motor Speedway this season, he was 0 for 16, but that changed earlier.
Texas Motor Speedway, the site of the Samsung 500.
Still very early on in the season, still a long way to go. Jeff Gordon, a 47-race losing drought, plus he's never won here at Texas.
None of the past matters. Today's about today. Everybody take a deep breath. Let's get it going here.
David Rudiman on the pole here today at Texas, and the green flag is out.
Loose down to the center, and then when I pick the throttle up, a little snug right there.
Appears early on Jeff Gordon could be losing the handle or maybe just taking it easy.
I'm pushing when I land, but I can slide the back end around still.
I tell you, that spot's pretty finicky. We can get it loose, we can get it tight. We can't get that spot good.
We've been watching Jimmy Johnson really fall like a rock.
Evil right now.
I don't know what happened that last run there. I don't understand why I got so loose.
All day long we've said Jimmy Johnson, no chance, not a contender. Now he wants that second position.
Gaining on his ass, dude. Go get him. This is your shot.
Jeff Gordon trying to hold off Jimmy Johnson.
Nice and smooth. Keep searching around. I'll let you know if something changes. You're doing good.
Pop the champagne. Gordon wins for the first time at Texas Motor Speedway.
Yes, you guys got me a win at Texas. I love you. Woo!
thought Jimmy.
I was just telling these guys, I think Texas is one of the coolest racetracks that we go to. It's got a lot of cool amenities, you know, with the Dallas-Fort Worth right there. There's a lot of cool things to do there to go and actually as a fan, as a spectator. But to go and watch that race, it is amazing. It's one of the fastest, if not the fastest racetrack that we go to. Qualifying speeds are just out of the sight, and it's a lot of fun. The racing, the reason it's so good, and you have to pay attention, guys, is the corners are actually relatively tight. It's a tight radius corner track. But as soon as the tires start to fall off a little bit, everybody starts to go up to the wall. And then the straightaways are a little bit narrower. So it really makes for some really good side-by-side racing. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of options for the drivers, the crew chiefs, to make things happen here at this racetrack.
Michael, the big thing I think of when I anticipate going to Texas is the speed there.
Yeah, and what's interesting, it's a lot like Atlanta. You know, Atlanta, you put on new tires, you go out there and you can run 190-some miles an hour, and it's fast. You run about 10 laps and you're sliding around like you are like you used to at Darlington. So that's what I think is most fun about this track, is the diversity between how you start and how you finish a run, and how you have to have your car good for both. It really is a fun racetrack for the drivers.
And it's going to be great weather this weekend.
Is it?
70 degrees, sunny. It's going to be beautiful.
You go with the weather forecast, would you?
That's kind of what I do this for a living.
That's what I do.
Al Roker over here bringing it.
Wake up with Chad. All right, up next, Jeff Gordon's early races at Texas were horrible, but he got the monkey off his back in April. And 8 of the 12 chase drivers were in the top 10 at Texas earlier. We'll take a look at all the stats this week in NASCAR. We'll be right back. Take a look at our chase drivers and their relative success at the Texas Motor Speedway.
This is a great race for a lot of those teams right there. Carl Edwards won the race in the fall on fuel mileage. He did have the fastest car, but he was able to manipulate the field and stretch his gas mileage to win that race in the fall of last year. So this is a really good racetrack. The Toyotas are going to run really well. Vickers, I would say, is probably going to be a contender for the pole. But a lot of good things going on right there.
And also look, but though Vickers, no top 10s at all. But then you mentioned Carl. Carl, the guy that has the most wins, and you would think it would be Jeff or Jimmy or Tony. And here they all sit with one. So I think that's a big equalizer there at Texas. Like you said, Chad, it's a great race, and you see that by the statistics there.
Chad, you mentioned Carl Edwards won there, stretching fuel mileage. And, you know, that seems like such a disparity. You know, it's a fast track where speed is a premium, but you've also, I mean, I guess we could make this argument, worry about this every week, but fuel mileage is also a premium.
That right there, a fuel mileage win is no different than what we did at Talladega. It's figuring out a way to beat the odds to try to get the best finish that you possibly can. You can only get scored for the last lap. You know, that's where you get your bonus money, that's where you get your purse, that's where you get your points.
Sometimes on TV it'll say as they run now.
Which means nothing.
Oh, okay.
Which means absolutely nothing. So when they do that during the broadcast and everybody gets excited and they say, oh, Mark Martin's only 5 points behind. No, we're just still 118 until the race is over, you know. So, but that's the name of the game, and that's one of those great racetracks where that stuff's going to come into play. 2 tires could come into option there. I mean, if you get a green, white checker finish and you're late in the fuel run, people could come down pit road. Maybe somebody takes 2 tires. It's an amazing racetrack.
We saw just a little while ago, Jeff Gordon got his first win at Texas Motor Speedway earlier this season. Prior to that, it had been a racetrack that had been tough on Gordon. In fact, one of the hardest impacts he ever endured was at Texas.
If Jeff Gordon is NASCAR's version of Superman, then Texas Motor Speedway is his kryptonite.
Gordon has just crashed. He's gone into the infield.
There's got to be oil up there on the track or something.
On that front straightaway there, you know, if there's a car blocking it, you're going to hit it.
That trouble here in turn 1.
A Texas-sized twister.
Earnhardt's in it. Jeff Gordon's in it.
Jeff Gordon rolls out. Look at that mess.
And Jeff Gordon just got into the wall here coming off of turn 4. He's in the grass down the front straightaway sliding towards pit road.
Gordon's day may be over, and he may be the 43rd and final finisher of this race.
His 3rd race here at the Texas Motor Speedway in NASCAR Winston Cup competition, 3rd time that he's had a wreck.
Big crash up in turn 2, and there is one of the cars involved. Jeff Gordon again has been snake bit here in Texas.
In his first 4 trips to the Lone Star State, Jeff Gordon averaged a 32nd place finish while never completing a full race. But that all changed starting in 2001 with a string of 4 consecutive top 5s. Yet still, no victory lane.
Well, considering our track record here in Texas, a fifth's like a win to us.
In 2006 and 2007, Gordon made huge strides at the track, capturing 1 pole and 3 top 10 finishes. And optimism was high for the 24 heading to Texas in 2008, but the April race didn't live up to expectations.
Boy, I tell you what, Mike, I'm watching Jeff Gordon. He is in trouble.
We're in trouble. Steering completely around everywhere, but when I pick up the throttle, I get tight, especially up at 2.
The yellow flag is out for the second time today. It's for trouble in turn number 4.
Jeff Gordon has never won at Texas Motor Speedway. He will not win today.
The second trip to the Lone Star State in 08 proved perseverance pays off. But after starting on the pole, Gordon still fell 1 position short of victory lane.
Great teamwork all day. I mean, it was a heck of a fight for us. You know, we started on the pole, the car was good. The second's like a win for me here at Texas.
In 2009, Jeff Gordon brought a dry spell to the mile-and-a-half track. He hadn't won in 47 Sprint Cup races and was 0 for 16 at Texas. But everything changed.
17 tries at Texas. 17 is the lucky number for Jeff Gordon. He finally wins in Texas.
Jeffrey, I'm proud of you all day, man. You drove just a hell of a race.
The truth is, fans, he just never wanted to wear that cowboy hat. No, it becomes an issue for a driver. It becomes more of a mental issue. You're saying, man, I don't look forward to going to this racetrack. I haven't ran well there in the past. And finally he got over that hump, and now he won the race. A lot to be said about that. So, there's more to racing than just saying the car's handling or not. There's a lot to be said about a driver's mentality going to a racetrack. So a lot of drivers hated Talladega, and they don't do well there. But when a guy looks forward to going to a racetrack, now Jeff Gordon looks forward to going to Texas, and he might have a good run again Sunday.
I remember in Victory Lane, Jeff's wife, Ingrid, wasn't there. Mr. Hendrick wasn't there. Maybe they didn't think he was going to do well.
Like, well, we just stay home this week.
Yeah, we'll catch you next week. All right, catch NASCAR Race Hub this week at 7:30 on Speed. Tuesday's show will include a report from the test at Daytona, and Wednesday features Talladega winner Jamie McMurray. David Rudiman is also here. NASCAR Race Hub, 7:30 Eastern every Monday through Thursday. When Twin returns, an exciting finish in the Truck Series race at Talladega. You'll see the highlights next. You're watching This Week in NASCAR. We'll be right back. I want you to take a look at Friday there, Michael Waltrip. We are basically on the air for 13 hours at the Texas Motor Speedway.
I love that. I tune in at the beginning. I want to see how y'all feel. I want to feel the energy. I want to know what the stories are around the track, and I'm going to find it all out on Speed.
And that energy will be as high at the end of the day as it is at the beginning. I don't know how good we'll be, but guarantee you that energy will be good.
Don't forget about Saturday, NASCAR Performance at 7 p.m.
Did Larry Mack tell you what time?
He didn't tell me. He already told me in my ear.
The way y'all bring it all day long for 13 hours, I think you need Steve Burns t-shirts.
Oh, that would be a first. The Camping World Truck Series competitors in action at the Talladega Superspeedway. Michael's joking. Kyle Busch got his 15th career win in that series. It was a wild one.
Bodine trying to make his move to the outside, and we have trouble on the back straightaway.
Problems for the 14 and the 5. Now they all bottle up behind them. The 16's into the wall. Hornaday, your championship leader, is into the wall. A lot of damage on the back stretch. Oh, and Max Pappas gets into the 5 of Mike Skinner.
Watch right of your screen. Johnny Sauter in the 13 gets into the quarter panel of Mike Skinner.
Look at Crafton slide by barely on the outside. Colin Brown barely through the hole.
Ooh, look at Rick Crawford's rear end lift up off the ground.
Most of these crashes happen on the straightaway, it seems, Phil.
And it's amazing. You wouldn't think that would happen, but it does.
Sauter was determined to stay in that hole.
There's Copart Chevrolet right there, right along with him.
You can see that's starting it right there. And then it doesn't happen until seconds later.
Here comes the bump. That's the bump that's going to turn Todd sideways. He moves up, Skinner moves up, then Skinner tries to move back down, and Johnny has already stuck his nose in there. They make the contact.
And watch Max, he's spinning at the beginning of the wreck, and it looked like he's going to get lucky and get through it.
Todd Bodine hugging that yellow line as they come out of turn 4. Just the triangle to go. 4 wide through the triangle. Here comes Kyle Busch. He goes to the outside as they come to the stripe. Kyle Busch will win at Talladega.
But look at the run. Eric Almirola pushes his teammate Kyle Busch by Todd Bodine to get first and second. What a great finish.
That just happened. Unbelievable. Eric Almirola, I owe everything to Eric Almirola today. You know, sticking behind me on that, from that last pit stop to the end. I told him if he just stayed with me, they wouldn't be able to beat the 15 and 51. So awesome job to Eric. He can take my half of the pay after today, and I don't get paid anything, so I don't know what Billy will work out with him.
What a great finish that was. You know what I like most about it was Todd Bodine took the white flag, leading. We thought he was going to win the race. Then it looked like there's no way he's going to hold him off. But he did everything perfect all the way to the middle of the tri-oval, but he still got beat. You know, Todd did just a great job, but sometimes you can't win them all. He'd won 4 in a row. Give a shout out to Chrissy Wallace. She got 13th.
But see, I want to say something about that Todd Bodine deal. He could have wrecked the entire field. If he'd have done what some of these things, these accidents that are happening in the Cup side right now, it would have been the same scenario. He could have pulled up there to try to block those guys, got spun or taken out the 51, and wrecked the whole field, and we'd be having the same conversation that we had about the truck race we had about the Cup race.
They had one big one in that race, and then a great finish. And the racing didn't look a whole lot different than it did on Sunday. It was basically the same thing on Saturday. But this will probably get proclaimed a great race. But the reason why it was a great race, I agree with you, Chad. Kyle Busch and his teammate made a great move, but Todd Bodine did everything perfect on the last lap. Right. He just came up a little short.
Will you guys wear your Batman outfits at Texas Motor Speedway?
I'm the Joker.
Chris Devoda, kitty cat. Camping World Truck Series in action at the Texas Motor Speedway. Are we allowed to say that? I think we just did. Friday night, 8:30 p.m., Michael as Cesar Romero. Let's take a look at the battle for 13th in the points. Kyle Busch leading Matt Kenseth by 57.
That pays a lot.
Yeah, and the thing is now, fans, is I think a lot of these teams you'll see, they're starting to look towards next year. You see Kyle Busch with a new crew chief this week at Texas.
Dave Rogers.
And I think you're going to see a lot of this. And Lance McGrew now is going to be Dale Jr.'s crew chief. You're going to see a lot of these things really falling into place, getting prepared for the Daytona 500.
I still don't feel good about that deal.
About the 18?
Yeah. I don't think it was done right for Steve Addington. I really don't. And I'll go on record saying that. That guy's done a great job over the course of the last few years, sticking with that team and building the 18 and building that team into what it was. And they won a bunch of races.
They can't get the job done. Okay, fans? They're not getting along.
How can you say that? They're not right now. Give things an opportunity, though.
No. It's over. Dave Rogers is coming in, and these guys are going to be scared because that 18 will be a factor next year. Beware.
Are you scared, Chad?
They said the same thing about us in 2005.
What's that? Did they say?
That we were splitting up. Jimmy and I were done. We're coming back. Wasn't going to happen.
But it didn't happen, did it?
Then you had milk and cookies.
I don't remember. Right. Oh, you had it all back. Oh, so you're saying that they will put.
They could have fixed it.
How long is this show?
Y'all keep going. I got to do the picture of the week.
How long are we on today, anyway?
Go to speedtv.com to enter the picture of the week giveaway. Click the show's tab at the top. You know how to do all that stuff. Put McMurray in the subject line and you're entered to win. Be sure to put your shipping address in the email.
This Week in NASCAR is presented by Geico, where 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
After the Texas race on Sunday, join us here for This Week in NASCAR. Michael will be here, Greg Biffle, and Jimmy Spencer. And it pains us to say this might be Chad's final 2009 appearance.
I know. I am sad about that. I've really enjoyed it this year. We've had a good time. We've had some new people on the show, and it's been a lot of fun. It's sad, man. I hate it, but hopefully I can come back next year.
And I've been here every week. You've been.
I have a feeling you're a staple to the show, buddy. You'll be here for a while.
Remember last year you said that little guy Kazoo was going to tap Chad on the shoulder when he clinched the championship?
Yeah, and it's done.
I think you're right. I think the championship's over. But you know what I'm going to watch this week? I'm watching the 99, the 16, the 42. How about the 29? These guys haven't won this year. There's only 3 to go. They all can't win. So that's going to be interesting.
Do you know how many drivers have won this year?
14.
Good job.
You know who's won the most races for Roush Racing? Jamie McMurray 1-0 for everybody else. Got a couple of big announcements for MWR this weekend on sponsors.